The story that we choose to tell ourselves, that is the difference that we always make in our life. You see, we like to think that sometimes that things are predetermined, or that, there's someone else to blame for the shortcomings in our life or the place we end up at. But truthfully, it's all dependent upon the story that we tell ourselves. It's all dependent upon how we choose to write the story about our life. You see, something that I've come to understand and believe and see and experience is it's never about what you go through. It's about how you write the story from what you go through to then help others. You see, because someone could say that they were handed the worst possible hand of cards in life, and they could sit there and cry about it and be upset for their entire life and only live out a miserable existence. In fact, plenty of people do that, sadly enough. When in reality, there's people who have had it worse that made it better. There's always people who have had it worse than you, ended up choosing to make it better. This is the story of many of the greats in any sport or any one endeavor. We get to write the story. We get to tell the story as we see it. The hard part, my friend, is learning how to see the story. It is getting through the day-to-day to the point where you can understand what your day-to-day is and why you believe your day-to-day to be what it is. Meaning, there's an underlying story that's always playing throughout our day-to-day. And if we don't take the time to see it and understand it and analyze it and then make it what we want, we're leaving it up to chance. And it is very much not the case that you will live the life that you desire when you leave it up to chance. Because we're all out here trying to live our best life. But many people, it's not like people wake up and they're like, all right, I want to be miserable. No, but it just becomes a habit. It just becomes what our normal state of being to be miserable. Our normal frequency is very low. We're caught in the lower states of consciousness because many different factors, because of the story that we choose to tell our life by. You see, when my friends doing the work, getting into the shadow, understanding what you believe about yourself, understanding what you've been through and what you experienced and how you experienced it, really taking the time to look at it and understand it, then allows you to be back in the driver's seat of the person who makes the story, the person who writes the story the way that they please. You see, but when we're always stuck and always constantly drifting and pulled between different circumstances and situations in our life, we never choose to have the energy or choose to take the initiative to look at the story to be able to rewrite it. We just continue to live it out even though we don't like it. Here's an interesting thing. Many of us will fight like hell to remain in a state of normalcy, even though we hate that normal. Think about that. Someone can be miserable as can be, yet because it's normal and casual and it's predictable, they stay there. They run away from things that bring change. Why is that? Well, the animal inside, truthfully, likes to be able to predict. It doesn't like change. As humans, we want to be able to predict so we can then ensure our safety and our survival. But you might ask, are we not more than mere animals? Is it just an animalistic body, a fleshly body that we inhabit or that we are? Is there nothing inside of us? Well, why is it that when we die, something leaves that can't be measured in weight? Why is it that there's always an attractiveness to us? There's always an essence of electromagnetic vibration if you were to scan it with the right type of scanner? Why is it that when we look around at life, we see things that are one with ourselves? We see the unity of everything with the right lens. Why is it that we all connect through stories, through pain? Why is it that our animal might really want something and might really want the pleasure of something, but there's something inside of us that tells us it's not what we need. It tells us that we're doing the wrong decisions. Do we have to listen to that? No, most people don't. But there's always that voice there. That voice might be the very thing that you are fighting against when you choose to make bad decisions and have bad habits. But it all comes back to how we're telling the story. And choosing to look at the story and understand it so you can then rewrite it, that is returning to the observation state. That is returning to the spiritual driver's seat. That is getting out of your own way to then lead from within. That is removing the fleshly bonds to the earth to allow yourself to gravitationally pull yourself back to the spirit self that you really are. You see, as the beings that we are incredibly powerful. We have immense power. We can manifest anything we want. We are such beings of light. We are humans. Like hue, like light. We get to choose our reality. We get to inhabit the existence that we do by our very choices, by our very feelings. And this is something that quantum physics is now proving as science for the deterministic folk out there. This is something that the mystics have been describing for thousands of years, yet science is now proving it. Interesting, right? Because it's not that we are such sophisticated scientific beings and sentiment is something that we all understand. No, it is that we are energetic. We are spirits. There is something inside of us that you cannot determine by physical words and denominations and characters and letters. There is something unseen, something unseeable. Thus, this is why the journey is all to teach you about faith. But that's another story. Truthfully, we are the observer, the one writing the story. We are the person who chooses our reality as it is. We are the person who chooses to inhabit the existence as it is by our feelings, by our actions and our thoughts, thus leading to our feelings. So my friend, will you take the pen back? Will you take the steps necessary to understand what you've wrote as your life? Because again, we all tend to make bad decisions when we're writing that story the first time. When we're the hurt child who just wanted their father's love, their mother's love. When we're the hurt child just wanting not to be poor, not to be in a lack state overall. When we're the hurt child who just wonders why we were beat. When we're the hurt child who faced any sort of trauma. That story was starting to be written then. That was when we felt out of control. That was when we felt that life wasn't up to us, that there was a lack. Ultimately, trauma is always based around lack, and in particular, lack of control. So in these earlier stages of life, we are just a child. We're just learning how the world works. These are the times that our stories are starting to be written. These are the times that our early sentiments of life is understood or began to be written into our code, written into our subconscious mind as our understanding of the world. And so what happens is we go through this hard state, whether it's something that happens once and then we remember it for the rest of our life, or it's an overall state for those of us that had it worse as kids, whatever it is, because everybody has different stories once again. Whether it's one time or the whole story, this is how we believe life to be. And so this is the story that we have to look at, and we have to see, and we have to take time to understand what we went through, so then we can understand that story, so then we can rewrite it in the ways that actually help us. You see, for me, I was conditioned in certain ways to be under-expressive as a kid. So going into real life, going into being an adult, I had to learn how to be expressive. I had to rewrite the story. I had to go back and see why I thought it was okay to be so under-expressive. I had to go back and see what I went through and what how I reacted in those younger states. Because how we react in those younger states is what begins to wire into who we are today. So what did I do? I had to take the initiative to begin to take the pen back, to be able to see what it is that I went through and then change the story. Talk to my younger self, talk to my inner child, talk to that side of me who was just hurt in one way or another, to then understand it, to then tell it the right story. So my friends, if there's anything you get from this, is that you have the pen, but most of the time we are unconsciously writing the story. Become conscious again. Remove yourself from the vices. Remove yourself from the predicaments and the environments and the situations that pull you down. Begin to live anew, afresh, a spirit of oneness with goodness and greatness. Don't allow the devil to tear you back, because truthfully, this is the game. This is the game of good versus evil. This is devil versus God. The devil wants you to think you're just your body and all things are determined beforehand, and that your pain is your story and that you should never do anything better. That is the devil. It doesn't have to be a necessarily entirely, completely evil spirit that controls X, Y, Z. No, it is simply put, evil. It is the lower self. It is the lessening of the human being. It is being entirely determined by the body, not by the spirit. Whereas God is living with the spirit. God says you don't need attachment. You don't need to be tied to the physical world, because oftentimes that is exactly what will take you away from the spirit that is all knowing and all faithful and all creating. The positive side of you, the most uplifting, inspiring version is waiting for you to listen to it and work from it and allow it to work through you. But it's the devil ties. It's the fleshly attachments that want us to stay here on the three-dimensional level where we don't really know what life is about. We don't really know our true potential. God or goodness knows our true potential. It knows that we all have infinite potential. It knows that there are infinite realities and that we can choose to inhabit into any which one we choose. And we should go through the higher ones, the greater potentials of ourself, based on our story, based on what we went through to then help others. You see how it all comes back around? But the devil wants you to take your story, what you went through, and tell it to everybody else in the most negative way. It wants you to tear yourself apart, because that's what the body, that's what the animal does. It becomes fearful. It runs away from challenge. It runs away from the things that really life is all about. Change, development, growth, love. When we listen to God, when we listen to good, when we listen to our highest self, when we work with the divinity, that is what the process is. It is all becoming of our true version of us. It is working to annihilate those sides of us that want to pull us down, so then we can work to our greatest good. It is listening to those sides of ourselves that were hurt and in pain in the younger years of life, and to really release those demons, because that's what it is. Those are the demons. Those are the demons, the stories from the earlier days, the stories that are inhabiting inside that need to be released. This is the push and pull. The devil wants to pull you down. God wants to bring you up. You don't have to be religious or anything to simply understand good versus evil. So, make the decision, guys. It's up to you. Love your life. You deserve it. Let's go.